Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. And in today's video we have this 2023 Lexus NX 350 and we're going to do the side chrome delete installation for this vehicle. So as you can see, this is how it looks before doing the installation on the side panels, and this is how it looks after the installation. So we use the gloss black material, that way it matches the pillars on the vehicle, and also it gives it a more sportier look to the vehicle. If you like the product, link for the product will be in the description below. But with that being said, let's get started with the installation video. So before starting with the installation, we need to make sure we prep the panel. So to prep the panel, you can take it to a car wash to help remove any contaminants that the panel may have. But just make sure if you do take it to a car wash, that the whole panel is completely dry and there's no water left over. Another option you can do is have a spray bottle, add water and baby shampoo on it, and make sure you spray your solution on your towel, not on the panel itself, just so it could be easier to dry afterwards. And just make sure you remove all the contaminants, have it clean and dry, because if there is still any water on the panel and it gets on the adhesive side of the film is not going to stick even if you apply heat. So we need to make sure that the whole panel is completely dry. So with this installation, we're going to start by applying the film to the top panel first. So with this one, make sure you align it on this edge first. Just give yourself enough material to cover the curve here, and then from there align the film, and you can use the bottom half as a guide in order to align it. Should be something like this. And if you need to adjust the film, you can. Just make sure to lift it carefully. You don't want to accidentally lift it too hard and tear the film. Just follow until you reach it to this edge. And like I said, if you need to lift the film to adjust it, you can. With this one, you can open the door just to make it a little bit easier to work with on the inside. So just lift it to realign it if you need to, but just make sure you're covering all of the chrome. Once you place the film to the panel, grab your squeegee and just start tacking down the whole film, and make sure as you're tacking down, you remove any air bubbles that are behind the film. And then all this excess material, you could either tuck in on top here of the film or trim it off right exactly where it covers all of the chrome. So just start tacking down the film little by little. Make sure you cover the chrome on the top layer, and then once everything's good to go, then we can trim off the excess material. Once you see that you have full coverage on the top and on the bottom here, now we could trim off the excess material. So grab your blade and just find the gap between the gasket here and the chrome panel. There's a small gap where you could insert the blade and do a straight cut right here. Just make sure, be careful not to scratch your panel and also not to tear any piece from the rubber. So just take your time. You don't have to rush the process. Just find that small gap and then just trim off the excess material. And you could always stop, double check and see if you're doing a good cut. And if you see it's good, then you can continue on with the rest of the trimming process. Like I said, just take your time when you're trimming the excess material. And then on this edge here, make sure you trim off the excess material. So just align it and trim it off. Then just remove that excess material. Remove it slowly and just make sure you're covering all of the chrome and it's doing a full coverage. That's pretty much it. Remove the excess material from here as well. And now all we're going to do now is apply heat to help tack down any film that's still lifting, and also the film that's lifting on the top area where we trimmed. And then once you're done applying heat and tacking down the film and securing it, you can move on to the next panel. So grab your heat gun and start applying heat to help the adhesive activate faster and secure the film to the panel. Another tip that I could give you guys, if you do have, let's say, material underneath that's too much and you want to tuck it inside, what I recommend you doing is bringing your window down. That way you're able to bring down just a little bit the gasket on the window right here, and just apply heat and help it tucked in inside the panel here. So that way it just sits and it's flush, and you just apply it back once you're done. You could use this method just in case you do have excess material here, if you don't want to trim it, but if you want to trim it, you can. But there's different ways to going about the installation here. And if you do it, just remember to bring the piece back up so it's secure and it doesn't fall off. And now we can move on with this piece. All right, so now we're moving on to this lower panel. So with this one, start from aligning it on this edge, just work your way to meet it to the other end, and you could use the lower half of this panel as a guide in order to align the film. So start off from here, align it, and like I said, you could just use the lower half as the guide. And if you need to lift it to readjust it, you can. Just be careful not to lift it too fast or too hard, because you might accidentally tear the film. And if, like I said, if you need to adjust it, we give you a good amount of material so you can work around it in case you need to put it more higher or more lower. And afterwards you will just trim it off. And now that we placed the film, our next step is to tack it down. So grab your squeegee and tack down the film. And as you're tacking down, just make sure you remove any air bubbles that are behind the film. And after we're done tacking down, we're just going to trim down the film. And with this one, it's not the same as this one. There isn't a small gap where you could put your blade. With this one, there is like a where you could pass your finger and you'll feel where you're going to need to trim. So it's a little bit more easier, but just be careful as usual not to scratch the panel or cut off any pieces from the rubber. Just make sure, bring it up just to see where you could trim. So right here, so you can make an outline with your finger just to get an idea of where you're going to insert the blade and trim. Same here, look around to see where the chrome ends. That way you don't accidentally cut too much. Okay, so make sure this is tucked in on this area. And we're just trimming off just the top piece. Okay, so grab your blade, find that outline that you created with your finger, and just start trimming off that excess material. And just take your time when you're trimming. You don't have to rush it. And then lift it carefully, and it should be covering everything. And just don't forget to trim off that excess material on this end. And then remember here, we said we're only trimming the top piece just so it does a full coverage for the chrome. And now once you're done trimming, apply heat to help tack down the film and seal it. And then once you're done applying heat for this one and finish installing both of the front ones, you'll just rinse and repeat the same steps to the rear door. So to start with this installation, we need to make sure we align the film to this corner of the panel first. And then once we align it here, we work our way on installing the remaining two strips here. So make sure you align it right on the edge. And you can give yourself a little bit of excess material just so it covers the curved area of the panel here. And with this one, just lay the film down so you could work on one end. That way you could work on the other side without having this one in the way. So just place the film. You are going to have excess material here and here. That excess material you could either tuck in, if it's possible to tuck in on the top and on the bottom, or you could trim off the excess material. It just depends on how you go about with the installation. And then once you're done with the top piece, rinse and repeat the same steps for the bottom. Just make sure everything is flat. And you could use the bottom half of the panel as the guide in order to align it. And it should be like that, and it should have full coverage here. Just make sure not to accidentally crease the film. And that's pretty much it. And you would just grab your squeegee and start tacking down the whole film. Make sure you remove any air bubbles that are behind the film. With this, we might need to have the door open. So just put the film back up carefully, open the door, and continue placing down the film. So make sure any material you could tuck in, just tuck it inside. Okay, so as you can see now everything is flat, and now the next step would be trimming off the excess material. And after we're done trimming off the excess material, we move on to adding heat. That way we help the film tack down to the panel. For this section here, like I mentioned in the beginning, just make sure you give yourself enough material to cover this edge here. Since this panel here, it doesn't have a deep curve, it's more of a flatter surface here. You don't really need to do too much. You can apply heat just to help the film tack down to the panel before you do the trimming. So for example, I'll show you right now if we apply heat. So grab your heat gun and start applying heat around here. And this is just so we can help the film tack down to this curve. So as you can see now, the film has shrunk and has a grip on this curve here, and you would just do the same. Let's say on this edge, we need to help it tack down to this curve. So with heat, the film will start tacking down more better to this curve. So since we already have the heat gun, just apply heat everywhere just to help the film tack down, and then we could trim off afterwards. So now, as you can see, the film has formed after we applied the heat. So it's doing a full coverage. So now that it's doing the full coverage, we can start trimming off the excess material. So just find the outline of where you're going to trim off the excess material. And then once you have an idea of where, slowly and carefully start trimming off the film. Remember, you could take your time, you could stop wherever you need to stop, just so you could see if you're exposing the chrome. So far it looks like everything's good. So just continue where you left off, if it's on the right position. So let's say we stop there. As you can see, there's no chrome exposed, everything's covered, and you would just continue on with the rest of the trim. And it's like that. Just like I said, if you need to see where the chrome is at, just make sure you give yourself enough material to not expose it accidentally. But with this one, it should be pretty simple where to go about it. You could always use the other side as a guide in order to see where you're going to need to trim it after you applied the film. After that, just continue trimming off all that excess material we don't need. And then once you're done with trimming off everything, we add heat. So you see how it's coming out now? Everything's good. Just trim off all that excess material. And now, this is the final look. And then once you're done trimming, the last step, add heat one more time just to secure any pieces that are lifting after we trimmed. And then once you're done adding heat, you post heat the whole entire kit, and then you're done. So the last thing to do once you finish installing the whole kit on the side door is to post heat the film. So to post heat, all you're gonna need is your heat gun and just go all around the film just to help the adhesive on the film activate faster and just helping tack down any pieces that are still lifting. So once you're done with this step, you're done with installation. Okay, so that concludes the installation video for the side chrome delete panel installation for the 2023 Lexus NX 350. We hope that this video helped you guys out with the installation. If it did, don't forget to drop a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell. That way you don't miss any upcoming installation videos. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.